told you we'd make pasta, so let's make pasta. Now, a lot of people will do it straight on their countertop. It looks cool. It's great if you have kids. It's not so great if you're just trying to keep a semi-clean kitchen. So I'm going to use a stainless steel bowl, and we'll just mix everything in that. So we're going to start off with 4 cups of flour. I'm using 2 cups of regular flour and 2 cups of semolina flour. And semolina is made from the ground endosperm of durum wheat, which has a much higher protein content to it, and so it makes gluten at a much better rate than all-purpose flour. You can use all-purpose, just straight 4 cups of all-purpose flour for this. That's not a problem, but you'll get a better pasta with the higher gluten content of the semolina. Add to that about a teaspoon of salt. Make a well in the middle there. And that's where our egg is going to go. And it's 4 eggs at least to start. Now, making pasta is one of those, it's an art. So 4 eggs, 4 cups of flour, these are basic guidelines. Depending on the humidity level of the day, what kind of eggs you have, the phase of the moon, you might need more egg, you might need less egg. And that's all going to be determined by the consistency of your pasta dough. So just grab your fork, kind of scramble those up, and start mixing that flour in. Just gradually, like so. You just kind of let the sides of the well cave in. And what you're looking for in our final product here is you're looking for something with the consistency of Play-Doh. So not super sticky, not super wet, not super dry, somewhere in between. Once you've got about 2/3 of this mixed in, and it's starting to form a ball like that, it's getting hard to stir with a fork. You can switch out for the 2 best mixing tools on the planet, which is just your hands. You just kind of keep working this flour in until you get the consistency that you want. There. See, this is still a little bit wet. When you can pull your hand away from it and it doesn't stick after you've broken it apart like this, then you're where you need to be. Until then, just keep mixing that flour in. And there's no such thing as over mixing this, because you're just developing the gluten that's going to make the pasta hold its shape. When you've got the consistency you want, you're looking for, this is about it right here. It's still a little wet, but you can see the flour's not completely mixed in there. And if you've got some flour left over in your bowl, that's fine. Use that to dust your countertop so you can really work this by hand. And give it about 3 to 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes of just working it by hand. Just folding it, crushing it. Now what you're looking for is just an even, consistent color to the dough. So when you tear it apart, you don't want to see the white flour in there anymore. Okay, after 3 minutes of mixing, I'm good. Everything's same coloration. So now give it one last roll here. Kind of get it into a nice ball. And it's time for a little plastic wrap. One of the real keys to making a good pasta is to make sure you let it rest for about 20 minutes to half an hour. It doesn't matter if you put it somewhere cold, somewhere room temperature is fine. Just leave it sit for 20 minutes. So our leftover squash, we had about 3 cups. We put that into a pan like so. Generous bit of salt and pepper, about a tablespoon. Just enough water to cover it. Kick it on high, let it come to a boil. So obviously we're at a boil. And we're just going to let that boil for 5, 6, maybe 10 minutes. And just check it with a fork. When it's fork tender, go ahead and take that off the heat and drain it. Once your squash has boiled for about 10 minutes and it's fork tender, drain it. While it's still warm, get it right into a mixing bowl. Add in a tablespoon of butter, half teaspoon each of nutmeg, ginger, the zest of half a lemon, and about half a cup of shredded Parmesan cheese. The next part you can do with a fork, you can do it in a food processor, or like usual, I've got my trusty potato masher. I just want to mix that all together. It doesn't have to be completely lump free. We're not sweetening the squash here, but we are allowing its own natural sweetness to come through. Just augmenting it a little bit with the nutmeg, the ginger. When you've got that seasoned where you want it, we're going to go ahead and add in 6 ounces of crumbled blue cheese, and then just give that a toss. Leave your crumbles kind of chunky. You don't want this to melt up. And you can let the butternut squash cool a little bit once you've got it mashed to the consistency you want. I'm going to put that in the refrigerator and work on our pasta dough. It's been 20 minutes plus. This is a pasta sheet roller. These are remarkably cheap. I got this one for like $10. You can find them anywhere between $10 and $20. And it actually has another attachment that goes on it on this side to cut the dough as it goes through. So you can actually make fettuccine with this machine. I'm just using it for ravioli today, so not a problem. We're just going to use the base machine. Got a nice dial here to set the thickness of the dough. Hand crank. We're going to need a little bit of flour, but we have some extra from where we made our pasta. Then this is a nifty little tray. You can see it's for making ravioli. So I'm going to roll a sheet out, lay it on here, push down in here. We can put our stuffing in. Second sheet over the top. Comes with its own little rolling pin, and it makes it really nice and neat. Of course, you can always do this by hand. There's also all kinds of other pasta cutters and ravioli cutters. So however you want to do it, let's just get into this thing and get this knocked out. So I've dusted our work surface with some of the leftover flour we had from making our dough. I'm going to squash this into a more manageable disc. We're going to cut that disc into quarters that are easier to work with, and immediately wrap those other 3/4 you're not using. Wrap those up in plastic to make sure to keep that moisture in there, or you're going to have some really hard to work with dough. Then we'll just flatten that quarter that we're going to work with out a little bit so we can get it into our dough roller without too much trouble. And we're going to pass it through about 4 or 5 times, folding it in half and kind of just working that gluten a little bit and making this dough a little stretchier, a little bit more resilient to tears. Double check, make sure you're on your widest setting, and we'll start rolling here. And again, we're just going to roll it 3, 4, maybe 5 times to work that gluten, get this dough to be resilient to the stretching and pulling that we're going to be doing on it. Don't pull too hard. I mean, the machine does most of the work. But fold it in half, we'll work those glutens and get this to be a good stretchy dough. And that way the dough will also hold its shape after it's been formed. So if you're not making ravioli, you're going to try a different shape or something, you want those glutens to be really resilient to being pulled or changed. And at this point also fold your dough, give it a little bit of a flour so it doesn't stick to itself. It's its own worst enemy at this point. And use your fold over and roll here on your largest setting to make sure that you're making a wide enough sheet for your pan. Then after that 3 or 4 passes, you've got your width set, go ahead and start cranking your setting down. So this is a number 2. We're only going to a number 4 for this, and then we're going to take it over to our pan. Lay it over the top and use your thumb to push down into the mold. And this is where those glutens and that resilient pasta really pay off. And once you've got your raviolis formed, you can start spooning in your filling. Now, take care not to overstuff these, because when you run your little rolling pin over this, you'll squeeze that stuffing right out of the ravioli and burst the seams. So be careful about that. And once you've got the filling in all of your little indentations here, you can stretch over your second piece of dough and roll it. And I rolled it 2 ways. I rolled it lengthwise, and then to make sure I got a good seal, I rolled it widthwise as well. And use a little elbow grease, get some pressure on there so that that tray will cut away the excess dough, which I'm just going to pull away here, and then we'll just pop the raviolis out. Now if you have floured your tray, which I didn't, these should just pop out, but it's okay. I've got a knife and I've got patience, so I just peeled these out one at a time very carefully. And again, that gluten on that dough, it keeps it from ripping and tearing, and it helps you to do things like this, like pulling this thing out of the mold and getting a perfect little ravioli. Moment of truth. Hot boiling water. Get your raviolis. Just lay them in there. Now you'll see if you got your seals really good or not. Give them a stir, and this is simply boiling hot water with nothing but salt in it. Once they start floating up like that, they're pretty much done. You're just looking for the pasta to get done. And it's a fresh pasta, so it won't take long to cook. Three or 4 minutes. Let them drain. Onto a plate, seals held, looking good. And wow, this is another case where brown butter and sage would be a great topping for this. What I'm going to do is take 3 leaves of basil, roll them up. I'm just going to tear them, like so. I'm going to get a little hot melted butter. Drizzle right over the top like so. And a little lemon juice right at the end. And of course, just a little bit more Parmesan. And as usual, pretty plate and complex flavors. The sweetness of the squash combined with the tanginess of the blue cheese, the lemon to finish up. It's got a lot going on for it. And that'll do it for today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit those buttons, like, share, subscribe, and check us out on our other outlets.